Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. What do we have here in front of us? It says Kendrick Lamar unites the West Coast during Juneteenth concert in Los Angeles. So we back on Kendrick Lamar here because I think this story is starting to become interesting, and there's going to be more built up down the road from this character here, Kendrick Lamar. As you see, doing the as above, so below stands here in the red. I guess he's supposed to be representing Crips, or not Crips Bloods or whatever. The Pop Out Ken and Friends was held at the Kia Forum and featured performances from Tyler the Creator, YG, I'm assuming that's Bliss, Dr. Dre, and more. So what I wanted to cover on this is, outside of the fact that this dude is supposed to be quote unquote uniting the gangs, but how stupid is that? You uniting the gangs, Bloods and Crips and whoever. Everyone came together and it's united. That's like saying we brought together the pedophiles and the murderers together. Now we all under one roof. Outside of that, I wanted to cover, what they called it, which I thought was very, very interesting. In this picture here, this was the main picture that was kind of going around the internet with this so-called United West Coast. And look at that. It's kind of blurry here on the screen from this particular picture, but as you see, they made sure that somebody was throwing up the devil horns there, as you see. And you may say, oh, you reading too much into it. Nope. Again, this is the main picture that was going around, and someone very, very intentionally here made sure that they put this up, and this is a picture that they end up using. So again, what I wanted to go into this though, and why I'm even bringing this up outside of that fact, is what they called it. They called it One West. Kendrick uniting, quote unquote, uniting the other gangs, shouts out One West. So let's listen to this here.
Count of three, go say One West. 1, 2, 3, One West. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
You see, they throwing up a bunch of Masonic hand signs there in the back, but he called it One West.
Count of three, go.
Which I think is very interesting, because if you guys are familiar with if you are familiar with what One West is, One West was a main camp back in the late 60s, I believe. I could be mistaken, but One West essentially the camp that was in New York, in Harlem, if I'm not mistaken, too, as well. They started what we call like the camp movement that we see today. And I'm using the word movement. I really don't like the word movement per se. Normally reject any notion of the word movement because, some brothers be like, join the Israelite movement. I don't like that word because movement, it normally is associated with something that has a beginning and an end. I never saw Yahushua mention the word movement. But anyways, what I'm really referring to is the same today. And I believe, One West was one of the main entities that was known for it. But within One West, and I think they got a wiki page on One West, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, here we go. Quote unquote Black Hebrew Israelites. One West Camp is a subdivision of Hebrew Israelite groups that believe in the Old Testament and New Testament and exclusive identification of 12 tribes of Israel with ethnic communities of Black, Latin American, and Native American descent in the Americas. The movement is named after its first grouping, which was located at One West, 125th Street in Harlem in New York City, then known as the Israeli School of Universal Practical Knowledge, or today ISUPK. The movement has since splintered into numerous camps, including the New York-based Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ. I'm not too familiar with this camp. I guess it's ICJJC. In the Pennsylvania-based Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, that's ISUPK, Hebrew Israelite camps related to the One West camp do not consider themselves Christians and deny the Trinity, as well as the belief that salvation is for all nations on the earth. The One West camp teaches that Jesus was racially black. So that's why I thought this was interesting, because we know that Kendrick Lamar has, at least at one time, he's announced himself to be an Israelite. Now, what he's calling this quote unquote united gang front, he's calling it One West. I thought that was very interesting. But a little bit more on One West. What else I wanted to say about them? Pretty much, like I was saying, they're the main camp, that started the street teaching style that we see today. And like it was saying here, a lot of the other camps too, major camps that we know about, like GOCC, GMS, IUSUPK, IUIC. I really feel like ISUPK is kind of the most similar to the original One West. But I really don't think that's a coincidence that Kendrick called the unity, quote unquote, unity of these gangs as One West. When I was showing you guys how Kendrick was always portraying himself to be a messiah, this is what I meant. And they often assign roles to these artists to play off a real life script, just like a director would in a movie. And I see now Kendrick Lamar's role, and one of the many purposes of this quote unquote beef between Kendrick and Drake is really to prop Kendrick up as more of a messiah figure, but really like an Israelite messiah figure, if you will. One of Kendrick's monikers is King Kendrick, right? So that's why I really believe you got to watch this dude. And I just want to pop in real quick to see if you brothers notice that too as well. He called this the One West movement, or the he called it here verbally here One West. I thought it was very interesting. And I really I ain't heard him say nothing about being an Israelite since the album Damn, but you never really know down the road what they gonna end up doing with this dude. They may end up having him denounce being an Israelite or something to that extent. You never really know, because they keep trying to align this dude with the quote unquote Hebrew Israelites, and there has to be a reason for that. And let me say this real quick about Hebrew Israelites, or that term Hebrew Israelite. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. That phrase Hebrew Israelite is found nowhere in the scriptures, not even once together. Of course, it's Hebrew. Of course, it's Israelite. But Hebrew Israelite is not found in the scriptures anywhere at all. And I even had a brother tell me one time that Hebrew is in the Bible and Israelite is. So isn't that the same? We just put them together. No, it's not. And I'm gonna have to be real with y'all. Brothers, if you thinking like that, I hope you realize there's no difference between you and, say, a Christian that's adding to the scriptures that justified, their Christian doctrine, like Christ came for all nations or whatever the case. You kind of doing the same thing, just kind of defending the term Hebrew Israelite, because that your favorite camp or whatever the case is directly use that term, and they always throw around the term Hebrew Israelite, and that's why you're defending it, because you associate that camp or whatever organization with the scriptures, and they're not one and the same. They're not. Really, when you tell somebody that you're a Hebrew Israelite, you're more trying to associate yourself, or you're trying to get that person to think more in the mindset of these guys, like these camps, more than you are the scriptures. Because if you were, you wouldn't be using that term, because it's not found in the scriptures. You know what I mean? So if you say I'm a Hebrew Israelite, you're really more talking about camps and stuff like that than you are the actual script, the doctrine of the scriptures, just to be real with you. And I happen to be talking about this. I mean, I just had to, because we covered the topic. Why not? Again, I really just want to pop in a little bit quicker on this one. But yeah, I mean, with a lot of these camps, and let me say something too. You may be thinking, is Birmingham Brews a camp, or was this a camp? No, it never was a camp. As you see, you brothers don't know my actual name or anything like that, but as you see, it's been the same voice here on this channel for about the last, I want to say 2 years or so. But either way, we never were at camp or anything like that, or never had the, went out and taught on the streets or anything like that. Just a group of brothers that got together and, created some lessons, so on and so forth. But I've been from then I have taken over the channel pretty much. You might as well say it's a Birmingham Brew at this point. But yeah, just to clear that up, because I know some brothers kind of been wondering what's going on with that. But either way, I'm just kind of touching on a few things here, and I'm not talking down on any of the camps or anything like that, by the way. I'm not. A brother did ask me about this too. He emailed me about, joining a camp, and I told him, it's always up to you if you want to join a camp or whatever the case. And I have nothing against any camps, personally, collectively, I should say. But if we are examining it from a standpoint of, if I am being nitpicky, like some of the things that they mentioned right here on this page, like the 12 tribes chart. The 12 tribes chart, I believe it to be an abomination. And why is that? You may say, brother, that's a strong word. Well, everyone knows that it's not accurate. I mean, everyone pretty much knows that we can't put our people in a category based on where they live. That's the same thing that the so-called white man does. You're a Roman because you're from Rome, and that causes so much confusion on the earth, because we know that there were so-called black people that ruled different Roman empires, depending on what time it was, or not just Rome. I'm just using that as an example. Whatever the case, in Europe, we ruled Europe for 1,000 years. But since the term European, you normally think of a so-called white man or woman. Now, when you hear that term, you directly associate with it, with the land that someone is from, or someone. If you hear Irish, something like that, you're going to think of a so-called white person, right? And it's the same way with this. Like, you can't assign tribes based on where we're located. We don't know our tribes right now. Let's just be real. Now, we got to stop this. That's why I'm not in agreement with the 12 tribes chart, because we're supposed to be bringing brothers and sisters into the truth, right? We call it the truth. Well, I started out with a lie. We don't have to use deceiving tactics, in my opinion, to, give someone the truth. You can do the same thing. You can accomplish the same goal. You can just have that same chart or something and have like all 12 tribes, but you don't have to say, okay, these are American blacks, these are the Haitians, these are whatever the case according to the chart. When again, we know that's nonsense. It's all on seed line, not about where you currently live at. And I know, like I saw IUIC, they added at the bottom of theirs, or maybe all of them, I don't know, where we Isaiah 11:11, how we've been scattered, but that doesn't matter, because that just makes the whole chart quite irrelevant. Okay, and then some of the other things would be like the reincarnation doctrine, or some brothers, call it regeneration, where we live the same lives over and over. That's not in the scriptures either, and that's one of the main things that most camps teach, and that's quite an abomination too, and it's caused a lot of confusion too as well. So I just happen to be on the topic, so I'll be remiss of me not to mention it. But yeah, there's nothing inherently wrong with joining a camp or whatever. It's just that I find it to be a hindrance of growth. If you end up, coming to these same conclusions, you can't really express that. You all have to believe the same thing, or it will come off a little off. If you believe in one thing and somebody else in your camp believe another thing, it's just going to come off a little off. You got to kind of teach the same thing, which is not really a good thing. It may sound like it, but not really to me. I choose to be an independent thinker. And maybe that's why, I own my own business and I do my own thing, because I just tend to not be someone that's into groupthink. Okay. But I got love for the brothers and sisters in camps and things. So it's not that I'm talking down on them or anything like that. I just personally don't associate myself with such groups. But that's just me. It's just me. Um, and another thing, since I'm on it, man, I'm on it, so I might as well just talk about it. I mean, another thing with this too is that you know, my beef is when brothers and sisters act like you have to join a camp, or you going off. A lot of people will say, "Oh no, can't we know that being in a camp is not in particular a requirement, meaning if you're not in one, you're in sin." A lot of most, from what I see, most brothers and sisters will admit that, but the way they approach it is as if you have to be in a camp or you just going off. And then we know a lot of these camps, whether they say it directly or not, they pretty much feel like their camp holds the quote unquote truth. Like GMS says, if you're not, GMS has the 100% truth, and ISUPK said if you're not following their leader, then you quote unquote not in the truth. IUIC, I've never seen claim any such thing. Personally, I've never seen that. But the way the elders kind of talk about their camp, I mean, it's pretty much the same energy to me, and a lot of their imagery and things that I see is kind of suspect to me, and I just kind of leave it at that. But either way, that's just kind of my beef with everything there. But back to Kendrick Lamar, it's really something else. He's supposed to be uniting the Bloods and the Crips and whoever else, GDs or whatever, who he's supposed to be uniting. This fool, man. And our people really fell for this, didn't they? Like, oh, Kendrick Lamar is uniting the gangs, and who else had all the gangs coming together? And we don't need to be dealing with any gangs at all. If you really wanted to do something, you go there and you denounce any form of any gang. Okay, look, it's my last thing about camps, at least for now. Speaking of gangs, that's kind of what I feel like with camps. It's like it was the same thing with brothers and sisters. If you guys didn't know, I was in a one of these so-called fraternities while I was in college that I've since then denounced. But yeah, it's kind of like being in the gang, because we think our frat is better than your frat, and even though we supposed to be, brothers coming together under a common goal, all of the so-called fraternities are supposed to be Christian organizations, right? So we all supposed to be kind of on the same banner, but really just gang banging. That's how I feel about some of the camps. You really just kind of gang banging, and call it uniting. Unity, a unity camp, like that. To me, that's just the same thing as Bloods and Crips. From a standpoint, hey, I can feel brothers now getting ready to type something up. I can feel it now. From a standpoint, not saying that camps are the same as Bloods and Crips, but just from the standpoint of being two groups together, and then you come together as a group, two different groups come together, and then you call it unity. Now, I am not promoting that we are, individuals, or everyone needs to be doing their own thing. No groups need to come together. There needs to be no camps or no brothers coming together in quote unquote unity or anything like that. I'm not promoting everyone to do their own thing or be individuals. All I'm saying is that in itself, being a group, does also two groups coming together, to me, does not equally mean unity. The only real thing that matters, like it says in Matthew 12:50, I believe, is those that do the will of the Most High are my brothers, sisters, and mothers. I'm paraphrasing, but those who do the will of the Most High, that's going to be where our unity comes from, whether we are physically together or not in a group. So just that in itself does not mean unity to me, because sometimes you can have two groups where they have questionable doctrines and belief systems coming together. So to me, that's just not automatically unity. And again, I do find that some of these groups just end up banging. They just, you set tripping, gang banging, just like any of the other groups, depending on your belief system. My camp has 100% truth. Your camp is this and that. Our camp does this better than your camp, and all of this pride that you have within your group. Just like, I was saying with fraternities, it's the exact same way. So I would rather, brothers just come together on the common beliefs, and they grow with each other, but within their own homes, with their own families. They lead their own families and households. They come together to get better, which you should do, but it's not, you coming together and you all under the one roof where you got to believe the same thing and all of that. Just because you do that, you wear a garment and you got a logo and all of that. You call yourself a camp, and you come together with somebody else doing the same thing. We just have to be careful, and I think we need to speak about these things openly a lot more, because I think a lot of brothers can see it, a lot of sisters can see it, and really when people get into it in these organizations, they end up, straight up turning their back on the Bible in itself, because they've associated their camp with the scriptures so much. When their camp don't work out, they they either go camp hopping somewhere else, splitting off into their own camp, kind of like what these brothers did here, or they turn their back on the scriptures altogether. But I mean, we had churches. So in the scriptures, particularly like you see in the quote unquote New Testament, you had churches. So I'm not against any groups or organizations. I'm just referring to this modern day organization that we now call camps. They just have some type of, particular doctrine that they all kind of adhere to, which is not particularly tied to the scripture. So that's all I'm saying about this unity thing. Just to me, within itself, I don't see two groups coming together and I think, oh, unity. Unity to me is when, brothers and sisters are genuinely in spirit and in their hearts looking to keep the commandments of the Most High and keep faith in Christ, in doing things like this and putting out information to try to wake our people up or whatever the case, whether you're doing that on the streets, you're doing it on the internet, which a lot of people downplay, but everybody is on the internet nowadays. And a lot of people that came into the knowledge, or what we call coming into the truth, they came into the truth or the knowledge from the internet, from videos that they saw from camps. Even if it was from a camp or whatever the case, it was posted on the internet versus them being outside and actually hearing somebody. I'm not saying that never happens. You're not outside and, teaching the people outside, and that's not, when it happens. All I'm saying is that I know for a fact that a lot of brothers, I've heard their testimonies personally where, they were going through and they heard different things on the internet. That's pretty much kind of happened with me. It was a combination of in person from brother that I know, and then also videos that I was seeing online too. So I just wanted to add that about unity, and I don't want to come off a certain way, especially when I said the thing about the Bloods and the Crips and that being the same. But just kind of the energy that I get, and again, I threw myself out there with the fraternity. It's the same thing, and speaking last thing on the fraternity thing, one thing that really hit me with one of the other so-called fraternities on the campus that I was at, one of the brothers, he hit me with that, and it changed the way I looked at it forever from that point in time, because we called ourselves, quote unquote, beefing with this other fraternity. It's I was a part of it, and he was a part of one of the fraternities in the quote unquote Divine Nine, I believe they call it. But anyways, he was like, bro, look, I mean, you a black man, I'm a black man. We all trying to, be successful and all that, bro. I mean, we went about it a different way, but I mean, ain't we all striving to do the same thing? I'm like, dang. I always saw just, if you ain't in my fraternity, you ain't hitting on nothing. And he said it like that. I was like, dang, he right. So me and him being both like prospective heads of our quote unquote fraternities, we kind of ended that beef after we spoke, and it really changed my perspective and my mindset on that fraternity at the time. Which, again, I am denouncing any type of association with any fraternities. Don't join them. They are wicked. They are all tied to the belief in different pagan deities, by the way. But just from the standpoint, that lesson I learned at that time about different groups. So I see a similar kinship between gangs and fraternities that I do with camps. That's just the truth. Some brothers may scoff at that. I'm not talking about any particular camp or whatever. I have name dropped a few, but I'm not talking about individuals in those organizations. I'm just speaking on what I've seen from my own perspective. But anyways, that was my last thing on camps. I did find it interesting that Kendrick called it One West and the association with the One West camp. And I think that is pretty much it that I wanted to cover here. I'm thinking, but this dude was a fool talking about Bloods and Crips. All these so-called gangs need to be disbanded, and they've caused so much chaos within our people, especially our youth. We see this as a good thing because a lot of these quote unquote celebrities like a Snoop Dogg and I don't know the Game, all these people, Lil Wayne, that always claim these gangs. We want to be a part of something, especially without the father being in the home a lot of times. We want to be a part of something, our young men, and then you got to be jumped in, or you got to take an innocent life, or whatever the case. Whatever you got to do to get in these gangs, it's just complete chaos. And that's why you got to watch Kendrick Lamar. He's being boosted as this messiah figure, like he's doing a great thing, but he's really just promoting gangs even more. And they always use these people like this, these clowns like Kendrick Lamar. It's kind of similar to a Nipsey Hussle, where they act like they have this, this great purpose and this genuine spirit. And just like this dude, he's supposed to be this super deep artist, where I was seeing people like we gonna be breaking down his lyrics for another 100 years, and everything you put out just got 10 different meanings to every single line. The niggas be reaching so much with that too, man. It's be tripping me out. Like I'll guarantee you, man, half of the stuff that people say about this dude lyrics, man, he don't even be intending it himself. People just be adding on to it. But yeah, this is the image that he's portrayed, especially with this quote unquote Drake beef. He boosted himself like, yeah, I'm the innocent man. I got the deep music, and Drake, you're a horrible person. You're a pedophile. But me, I'm for the people, and you're not. I'm a real nigga, and you not. Drake is realer to me than Kendrick Lamar, because Kendrick Lamar, he acts one way. But one thing that Drake touched on that a lot of people is not bringing up, like how he do these songs. He did a song with Taylor Swift, and he do all these pop songs just like a Drake will, but Drake ain't hiding that. But Kendrick do that, but then come out and just try to out nigga you all at the same time. Little midget. I think something need to be said about that. You want to go all mainstream, be a Swiftie, then come back and out nigga you. Now he uniting the gangs after he been on tour with Taylor Swift or something like that. But this dude, he's promoting gang violence. Just this in itself is promoting gang violence. Now, seeing Kendrick Lamar do this just enabled, telling tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of our youth to join a gang just by doing this. So this is how they use their assets. When I say their assets, these entertainers, these artists, to come through and destroy us without us even realizing it. And we the one promoting it and boosting it, thinking this is a good thing. But, it always has a deleterious effect. Again, if he would have came out and said, I am denouncing all gangs, do not join a gang, do this, come back to the scriptures, you're y'all all are Israelites. That's what he could use his song "Not Like Us," for. But instead, on that song, what did he say? I beat you and then hide the Bible of God watching. I believe that's what the line was. So he could use this platform, since he pretty much knew this song was gonna blow up when he made it. He could have used that to say, we were Israelites on that and denounce gangs. But did he do that? Nope, of course not. That's another thing. He promote violence to a certain extent. He told Drake, he couldn't come to LA again and it was gonna be extortion and all this other stuff. But then, he act like Drake's such a bad person, this and that. I'm like, man, I ain't stunned this dude. And he is another thing Drake said that Muggs are not touching on. He is from what I see, he has proposed to his wife, but he didn't actually have the marriage yet, or the wedding, or whatever the case. So got this Red, White, and Dr. Dre, which they be talking about Diddy, but nobody want to talk about this dude. He's pretty much the same type of dude. You got to go through him to get into the industry. I had this dude out here. He got all type of stuff on him too, Dr. Dre. Y'all seen that picture with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg looking zesty in the grass? I might put that on the screen. Man, same thing. But I'm on Kendrick Lamar because, again, I touched on that. Because Drake, to me, like, what Drake is. Like, he sings and stuff. Like, everybody knows what Drake is. He got an album called Certified Lover Boy, which really, to me, is code for a certified boy lover. But anyways, everybody knows what he is. So to me, like, he not portraying himself to be a gangster and all this other stuff. But Kendrick, he just act like he from the West Coast, he from the streets and all this stuff, and he this and that. But then he's super nigga, and he the same thing. They the same person, man. They are the exact same person. Not lyrically wise and all that, but everything else, they the same persons. But this dude is just got a great PR team. He just painting this image that niggas are falling for. So it really trips me out. But that's pretty much it, man. That's all I really wanted to say about this this midget Kendrick Lamar. That's pretty much it. Lord willing, this was edifying. Until the next time, bid in one of mighty shalom.